All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to let folks get settled in. Um, so, Bassem, we are in the
Yeah,
middle of the World Cup. I don't know if it's the
it's
middle,
exciting.
it's the beginning. Did you see the gaggle of Scotsmen and Scotswomen that descended on Boston? Did you see this
No,
story? Okay,
no,
so Scotland has not been in the World Cup for like I think it was like 30 years. This is their first time in 30 years.
and
And
not
their
to offend
first
anybody, they don't go with England, right?
no, they don't. But they played their first match against Haiti in Boston at in Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play.
Oh God.
And the Scots have I think they've drunk the city dry is one of the stories that I saw. But the Scotsmen are everywhere. They went to a Red Sox game as well. There was I think 3,000 of them descended on Boston. But
I love it.
I love seeing these stories.
Did they beat Haiti?
They did, and they play again. I think this Friday.
I
Uh,
feel bad for Haiti.
but
I feel bad for some of these countries where this is probably the best meal they've ever had. To be frank,
well, I
I
love the
feel
story.
bad
There's
for
all
these
these.
countries that like.
We forget. Listen. I don't think we forget about how great a lot of the things that we do in the states are. But one of the things that I think we did is how great the stadiums are.
Oh my
Stadia.
God, it's
I
like
mean, looking at some of these matches and what they're doing, and they're playing in all over the country. It's amazing to see the stadia are impressive. Many of our
all I
customers might have
know
built them.
is I got a very excited phone call from my 80-something-year-old father about Egypt tying Belgium. It was great. It's it was cool to hear. It was cool
Yeah,
to
well,
hear.
it's cool to see. It's fun to watch. U.S. had their first win, so hopefully they got another couple in them.
Oh,
Um,
Canada tied. Canada tied.
and Canada tied. Yes, um, they're playing all over North America, so should be fun to watch. If you live in a city near the Scots, please keep us apprised of how that goes. They're traveling across the country apparently. Somebody goes, guys don't get out much. No, we don't, and that's okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. We're going to get started. We have a quorum. Uh,
Yeah.
Bassem, great topic today, and also we have a guest that we're excited to bring on. This is someone that many of you, if you've been looking at Briq and you've gotten to know us, maybe even you're a client, you probably know him well. His name is Reagan Enger. He's our head of solutions. Reagan, you want to hop on stage? There he is.
How's it
What's
going?
up, Reagan? How we doing?
Good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Why don't you give us a quick intro, your background and what you do at Briq, and then we'll hop right into it.
Yeah. So my background actually come from construction, but prior to construction, I was actually in mechanical engineering. Learned really quickly I did not love engineering. I needed to be in front of people, shaking hands. Transitioned into project management. Ultimately went to go work for a commercial GC out in California. Had built a relationship with Procore at the time, and then ended up leaving construction, getting into construction tech, and then had always had an eye on Briq, right? Knowing Bassem and his background at Procore in the day, was always intrigued by it, and ended up jumping over about 4 years ago. Since then, just been on the solutions team over here, now heading up that team, helping prospective clients and active clients really kind of identify the solutions that are worth bringing AI into, right? What can we tackle? What can we accomplish with AI? What's actually feasible? And how do we make that happen? So that's kind of my role today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely talk about, Reagan, we'll hear about some of the conversations you're having, and in particular around this lead to award workflow that we call that as we determine at Bassem. You're our CEO for those that are maybe new on this
Yeah,
call,
absolutely.
and you've just spent the last few weeks traveling around the country speaking to our clients
Yeah, and prospects. It's
and prospects.
whirlwind. Dallas, Chicago, New York. So yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks.
Yeah, and curious to hear, we want to spend some time kind of talking, but think of this almost as well as like a market update. I mean, the way that,
Yeah.
you know, contractors are thinking about finding work, finding their projects, and not only just finding work, but engaging with their existing clients. Whether you're a GC or a subcontractor, we'll talk about what we're hearing kind of from the front lines and some of the ways that you're seeing AI used in those processes would be helpful. But maybe just start.
Not enough, to be honest.
Not enough. Yeah. Yes. Surprise, surprise. Okay, what are you hearing from? Maybe give us an update over the last couple of weeks based on your travels. What are you hearing from folks out there?
It's we're still, for those in just a financial market update. Backlog is strong, but maybe not as strong as last year. So when we talk about GCs, I do want to be very specific. We're talking about GCs, and when we're talking about specialties, with GCs, there's still growth. They're still getting bids. It's getting more competitive. You can definitely see that, somebody that would go out and you'd see 3 GCs, you're seeing 5 or 6 now. And we saw that, I'm lucky enough to have been in construction this long. We saw that, kind of at the height of 2010, 2011, where you started to see saturation of bids. I know everybody says their work is negotiated, but owners are getting savvy. They know that there's like a little bit of a revenue hole coming in Q1 27 for most GCs. We're looking at our own data as well as anecdotal data. So, people are dipping a little bit and a little bit worried about 27 backlog. So as a GC, they're trying to fill pipe. And so they're bidding stuff that A, maybe they didn't bid before, and B, bidding stuff that isn't like preordained under like the negotiation umbrella. So we're seeing that. At the same time, what's unusual is because more GCs are bidding work, subcontractors are getting inundated with bid requests. So imagine a world where you're a sub and there's a job in town, you're in Boston, there's a job in town, there's 3 GCs bidding that job. And you're a good sub and you're going to get 3 ITBs to give them coverage numbers, right? Now there's 6. So now you got 6 ITBs. You got to weigh the risk of those 6 because not all GCs are made equal. Not all pricing is the same. Not all inclusions and exclusions. One GC is, self-performing part of your workload. So it's a different bid. So subcontractors are drowning in ITBs. Their win rates are going down. They're doing more work. They're begging for automation. So it's a 2-world model. One is I need to find the leads. I need to find the jobs before anybody else does, or I'm one of a crowd. And as a subcontractor, I got more than I can deal with because every GC is, running a little bit scared. I won't say desperate, but a little bit scared and bidding everything and looking for coverage numbers. And so that world colliding is dangerous for this industry. You got GCs pounding proposals out, subcontractors drowning in ITBs. And they're coming to us and they're saying, how can you make the chaos go away? And that from a very high level, that's one part of it. The other part of it is this abject fear if the work comes in because they just don't have the staffing. And so it's, it bleeds into delivery pretty aggressively because they don't. If I'm a GC and I'm bidding more work, and heaven forbid I get a bad job, that takes a GC out. That can take a mid-market GC, $100 million GC out of the market altogether. If I get a really, really bad job or worse, 1 or 2 jobs. And I don't want to reflect back on 2011 for those that are on the call that remember 11 and 12. There were some great, it was the same confluence of events. Everybody's bidding. It's a race to zero on the GC front. I'll take 1.5%. I'll beg my subcontractors. Now they're running thin because they're just doing everything. GCs disappeared. Subcontractors disappeared. We lost 5-7% of our market in 11 and 12 in companies. And that's a conservative estimate. Now it's obviously rebounded since then. So we're at a very delicate time, folks that are on this call, and I see a lot of great names on this call. We're at that apex moment where you guys can run around and just like do what we did 13 years ago and just spray and pray on the GC front, spray and pray on the subcontractor front, or use the tools you have in front of you to make it a better, avoid what we did before, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, 100%. And I just launched a poll for folks. Just want to kind of test the room and see, how are our folks, sourcing work and thinking about sourcing work. Reagan, we talked about this, in construction. You've got, yes, it's kind of a tale of two cities where GCs and subcontractors might be experiencing the world a little bit differently.
Right.
But regardless, competition is going up, and there's downward pressure on margin and increasing complexity in the work that's being delivered. What are you seeing especially on the subcontractor side, in terms of what those companies are experiencing around the country?
Yeah, and I would say, and again, I'm in what I would call like a high growth area. I'm up in the Boise, Idaho area, but you can compare this region to a lot of the states where people flocked to during COVID, right? We had a massive migration into states like Idaho, Tennessee, Texas, Arizona, right? Mm-hmm. And with that came a lot of new general contractors, right? New GCs are popping up every day. And for the subs, right, like Boise is, this area traditionally is what I'd say is it's a good old boy town, right? The subcontractors had a great relationship with the GCs. They could kind of name their price, and they were the go-to people. Now with all of these GCs coming into town, they're no longer that go-to guy for these new GCs that are here. So they have to now build the relationship with those GCs. They might be getting those invites through Building Connected or Construct Connect, whatever tool they're using, but they don't know them. They don't have a relationship. So the legwork and the effort required to win a job now has increased so much. So not only are they getting more invitations to bid from GCs they never worked with, kind of, exactly what Bassem was saying with scope coverage and things being different. They're all different bids, but now you have to start to build that relationship. You don't know these people. They don't know you. And therefore it's becoming a lot harder. It's a race to the bottom, not only for the GCs with the increased competition, but now subcontractors have to be really diligent in that pre-con process and that estimating to make sure that they're going to be the ones that are chosen for this project.
And I think it's also, the most valuable resource everybody has is their own time. And I think when you're spraying and praying without any, kind of plan or thought process around prioritization, what should I be working on? Should I be going forward with? Where do my skills lie? We know this for a fact. Construction, everything is a one-off, right? Nothing will be built the exact same way again, even if it's the same looking building on the same piece of land. If that thing got torn down and you ask a contractor to come back and build it exactly the same way, it'll be a totally different story, because that's how construction works. We're not manufacturing. So even though commercial, multifamily, acoustic tiles, whatever, all seem the same, they're all a little different. And when you don't know how to evaluate, what do they say? When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And we want people to spend time on the right work at the right time.
Yeah, 100%. And part of this, Bassem, you mentioned 2011, and we don't want to dwell too much in the past here, but I do think that there is let's talk about what, how work is found, and also the criteria which you're understanding what work to take. There's a certain amount of precision, I think, here that maybe didn't have to exist during kind of the COVID boom, even.
Yes, 100%.
And even this concept of we were joking, it was like marketing, construction, folks don't really get into construction because they love marketing, but but another way you could frame it is how do you stay in front of the customer, and your clients, even when they're not, actively negotiating work or bidding work. There's a new kind of way of thinking about the top of the funnel, if you will, in construction today. Talk a bit about the differences you see between then and now.
Well, right now, for those that are using, Otto Gen 6 to to build their pipeline. The first thing that we're doing is we have a set of agents, very deep research agents. We call them ultra agents that really do much deeper soul searching on behalf of the general contractor or the subcontractor to actually find ideal customer profiles and ideal project fits. So we go into claims databases, we go into their accounting system, we go into their win-loss if there is a pre-existing, legacy CRM, like Uninet / CoCentral. We're seeing a lot of replacement there, empty filing cabinets, but they were full of something and we can get some data out of them. And get that information in a way that the genius brain of Otto can say, this ended in a claim, that's not good. This didn't end in a claim. This was profitable, this wasn't. And it starts weighing a scorecard. So when leads do come in, when ITBs do come in, when RFPs as a GC do come in, it can continue to score that from is this materially a great fit for you guys? And when I made that analogy of the hammer and nail thing, everything, sometimes when you're at 100,000 foot level, everything kind of looks the same. You can't see the signal for the noise, and AI can. So it might be a situation where, Otto looks and sees the next the next superintendent up is, has under 3 years of experience. Not a great sign for a bid if this is a complex project. That mentality of go, no go, and lead scoring is the first thing that opens people's eyes up to, hey, this is where I should be spending my time. So forget about all the AI terms. The AI terms is your valuable time resource of estimating and creating proposals need to go on the things that A, you want to win, and B, the ones that you have a higher chance of winning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Reagan, you talked to a lot of, look, yeah, if let's say you're a subcontractor, you have kind of a lot coming at you and you have a lot of choices to make. You can't say yes to everything.
Right.
How are you hearing some of the companies in your market think through, what are the criteria on whether or not you take a job? How do you identify great GCs to work with? What are some of the challenges those subcontractors are facing when it comes to selecting the right jobs and the right clients?
Yeah, I think it really, again, it comes down to if they haven't worked with you as a GC, and it very much depends on how much work do they have actively, right? Can they even take on more work? And if they do, they need to price it right? So if you're not a GC that they're typically working with, like just for example, they're more likely to price that GC higher than they would for the GC that they like working with. They know how they schedule. They know their expectations. They know what is going to be demanded from them. So in that kind of situation, right, they're selective in the sense that, like, how much work can I take on? If I do, I want to make sure that I'm working with a client, with a GC that I know I can get the job done with, that I know there's not going to be any headaches, withheld payments, all these issues with punch lists at the end of that project, that you're going to get paid when you're supposed to get paid. Those kinds of things are all questions that they're asking themselves as they're going through this bidding process.
Yeah. And I think this really just comes down to, how do you consume every single data point, triangulate them to understand, is this a good thing to do or proceed with or not to proceed with? Is this even potentially you mentioned Bassem, by the time, if you're looking for, even if you're a GC looking for subcontractors, by the time you get a phone number and you're looking for a new job, that job's you're already too late.
And I think now's a good time. I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but I think now's a good time to talk about and visualize what we're really talking about.
Yeah. So let's talk about how does this fit? Right. So this idea of being able to take signals in from the world, from the internet, essentially, and be able to do some pattern recognition. Let's talk about that, because I think that's really important.
Yeah. So this is the first step for Otto. I'm just doing it quickly. This is a demo company, but I did it for Turner Construction. So I did an ideal customer profile report for Turner Construction. It is, in this case, Turner actually is a client, but in this case, we're looking at every private and public source that we have access to create an ideal, a folio, essentially, a dossier of when a lead comes in, what are we scoring that lead against? And so this is, if you look at what we're talking about, this is the ideal customer. When it's as if you just instantly trained a vice president of business development and a vice president of estimating or operations to know who to talk to and what to bid on. And why that matters is we don't just rely on Dodge. We don't just rely on a lead being forwarded in from some website. Because by the time it hits Dodge, to be honest with you, GCs, by the time it hits Dodge, it's too late. If they're going out to bid, I call it first in, first to win. If the first time you're learning about that project as a GC is when you get an email from them or an RFP, you probably already lost. And so why is this important? We're not just waiting for that lead. We are also reading hundreds, if not thousands of pages across the United States, looking at planning meeting minutes. We're reading Enger's reports, the 10K filings of large multinationals and looking for construction signals. You know, we're reading Circle K, Marriott, Hilton. Where are they building next? What have they said? What is in the news? Every one of these signals gets scored, promoted, and has the ability to help you prioritize your day. This is not about just finding, you know, what's already out there in the addressable market. It's about reading very unstructured, or in some case semi-structured data, and constantly reading the internet and then evaluating and scoring. That's the key here, is that we're giving general contractors, and in some cases subcontractors, the ability to turn on a region, subscribe to a region, and understand what's coming into that region before anybody else does. And that's what we call SignalX. SignalX is trying to find the signal from the noise. It's going in and it's going to find hundreds, if not thousands. It found 728 in the last 48 hours. And it's going to constantly score, constantly raise a hand when they think, or Otto thinks, you should be bidding on a project. That's the key here when we think about these listeners. You would do this if you had the time in the day. You would do this if you were, hey, I got enough time. I'm going to read the York County, Pennsylvania, very long list of everything that has changed that planning committee meeting minute. Like, I would go through the packet. I would read all of these things. I would find out what is good and what is bad. I don't care about a land development review for Mrs. Khan. So those would go to the bottom of the list. But I do care about a multifamily, or a land, change of control, or a permit for, land development permits. That's what we're talking about when we think about signals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, this is, by the way, this is groundbreaking stuff, because I think it's important maybe to take a step back and go, what's the alternative to this? Where, where you're using essentially AI to go out and detect all these signals. Before, we would, from a technology perspective, Bassem, we would buy, like, I don't know, a CRM or some kind of database, or maybe you just have a Google sheet, and then you would have, someone that's in the office who's just kind of like reading the internet and is just kind of stumbling around pages and looking for stuff. I mean, what is this category? What does this fit into when we're looking about, like, signal-based business development?
I think it's a very, very different story here than, is this CRM? Do we work with Uninet? Do we work with Salesforce? Yes. Do we replace Uninet and Salesforce? Yes. it's where it's where things get a little cloudy, right? This category is AI, which is, I think, very, very different than buying software. I do think there's a world where the idea that we all know and heard, like, software is dead, right? So we're getting to that point where software is just an empty filing cabinet, and this is a system of action. I just scored this lead. As Turner Construction, a 12,000 foot TI job probably isn't interesting, so it's a 7 out of 100. The idea here is, if it was interesting to me, I would assign it to an opportunity, and I would go in and assign it to an account, and then build that account and assign it and build that opportunity log. And once that opportunity log is built, I would have that same level of CRM functionality all in the same place, plus an AI backlog forecast, headcount tracker, actually built for me automatically as soon as I add that opportunity. I don't have to go in and think, oh, I got to build my pipeline report. AI builds it for me based on the delivery method, the actual potential start date. So is this CRM? I would say yes. It replaces all the functionality of CRM. It does it differently, though, Ellis. It's not doing it the same way as you would do it in Salesforce, where at Salesforce, you're just a keyboard jockey. Salesforce is a dumb filing cabinet. It doesn't know anything about finding a signal in Boston that meets the criteria of what work you want to bid on. And I think there's that approach of these signals coming in, but an approach that our folks in construction don't do necessarily enough of is when you really think about, where should I focus my time? Here's a list of all my best, if I was a retail contractor, here's a list of all my best potential retail clients. I should know everything about every client that I do work with. And while every business developer in construction is going to say it's a relationship business, I know everything about everything that's going on, I always point to the Circle K example. This job was found by reading their annual report, their Edgar's report, in a territory where a client's BD guy said, I know everything that Circle K is building. I'm a retail contractor. I just build boxes. I know what they're doing. They called Circle K. They said, why aren't we on this bid list? The real estate guy goes, we thought you were overtaxed. You have too much of our work. I'll let you bid it. And they won it. They did win it. They showed that they had capacity. That idea that you have so much insights about them, that you're using AI to find out what they like, what they don't like, where things are. It's creating these briefings for you. That puts you at the top of the list. So we're so project focused in construction. We're so worried about the signals coming in when construction starts. We forget that this is truly a relationship business, that I should be in front of Circle K. And so I call the SignalX stuff bottom up. I call the account-based stuff top down. If I can talk to these people on a regular cadence and really understand who they are and what they're all about. So if I want to, learn something about somebody and there's a full dossier on this person, that we look at their LinkedIn every day and see what they're posting and analyze that and understand their true network effect of who they are in the network. And then instead of having to remember to email them, going out and having the AI write the emails on your behalf and schedule them out for you. So you're constantly ahead and not remembering that you have to send a text message, that you have to go in and say, hey, Merry Christmas. Oh, you've had a big funding event or you've expanded. Let's go and find something about them to talk to them about. And this just uses your emailing. It writes the email for you. It does make it, it does use AI. You can't control what it's writing. but it creates playbooks for outreach. So all of a sudden you're a marketing machine. I think construction, some days we wonder if construction can spell marketing. Right? We don't have marketing departments in a lot of cases. And when we do, they're all about proposal generation, right? Here, a CEO of a general contractor can now be the #1 brand ambassador without lifting a finger. This integrates with LinkedIn, so it'll go in and connect with folks on LinkedIn. It integrates with your soft phone calls, so it'll actually allow you to make phone calls. It allows you to SMS. That might be too much for some folks. Some folks just want to deal with email, so that's okay. But this takes a Signal inbound target. They're building a lot. We know everything there is to know about Target because AI is giving me a briefing on Target. And then it creates an outbound sequence plan to inundate the market so you're at the top of their inbox. And yeah, I get it. We can walk around and say, that's not how construction wins business. But I'm telling you it is, because we're seeing it. We have hundreds of clients that are doing it. And if you're up against one of these AI-enabled lead to award shops while you're just waiting for the phone to ring, you're not going to be in business in a year. I'm
100%. And I think, by the way, I mean, for those that are perhaps new to Otto and to Briq, this is one slice that we focus on. We call this the lead to award segment. We focus on orchestrating, not only helping you find work and win work, but actually running the job, getting paid by the customer, paying your vendors, all the way through managing headcount and risk. But Reagan, from your perspective, this is where everyone's gravitating.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason we're doing this webinar on this specific topic. I mean, maybe how are you seeing folks kind of think about this in the context? Maybe they didn't know that this technology was even possible before. How are you hearing prospects and customers react to this?
Yeah, well, it reminds me of back when I did a little bit of the BD when I was a project manager, wore a lot of hats, right? I'd hear about a new retail chain coming to town. I'd hear about a project, right? Maybe they're going through entitlements. Maybe there was an article written about it that in 2027, this company is coming into my town. The next step for a business development guy is, okay, who do I reach out to at that company? And how do I become first in, first to win? Right? How do I find the construction manager for Chick-fil-A and be able to call that guy, right? Not just find him on LinkedIn, but be able to call him, text him, email him. And part of this thing too that Bassem didn't jump into is that we have that ability now to find these people, figure out who it is that you need to talk to so that you can be the first one in, first to win. So it just reminds me of that. It was like, oh, I hear about this project, but I can't do anything about it because I don't know who to reach out to. And they're based out of Florida and they're coming all the way to Idaho. I don't know who to talk to, right? Or I could try to do LinkedIn requests, but those usually get you nowhere because sometimes it's hard to connect through people with LinkedIn, especially when you're in different states. So that's kind of what I'm saying. That's what's really exciting for me is just really this ability to get the signal of, hey, there's entitlements going on. There's conditional use permits being filed. There's things happening in my city. It looks like somebody I've never talked to. Now I can find that signal, find the right person, and start reaching out to them. Right? I think that's the big power of this that no other CRM, right, quote unquote CRM, and that's out there today can do. So that's what's exciting for me.
When you ask Otto, like, tell me everything about a company, good, bad, or ugly, where you look at what these reports can produce, whether it's contact information, which of course we can do, or get to the point where, this is a company talking about everything that they've gone through since 1976. You can go back that far, maybe it's too much, but Otto's trying to find you every piece of information that it can find during this research process. And of course, like you said, if I want to find a contact, if I want to, go out and do searches, I can come in and look at, let's say, we want to focus on AECOM and I want to focus on the CXOs. It's going to go now search every nook and cranny it can find. Any C-level AECOM executive. It's going to go through, it's about a minute. It's a deep, deep search. If they're already in your database, it's going to be, hey, you already got them. But if we're not, if we don't have the AECOM list, this is every C-level executive. If I want to go in and import them into my CRM, I just click here. Now I have these 3 people that I can go through, have this dossier or build a dossier on them. And that dossier is going to be a deep research dossier on them. And if I want their email address and it's out there, it's giving it, I just got their email address. I could also get their mobile number. So I've gone from not knowing anything about AECOM to, in 3 clicks, finding the SVP and the COO and getting their email and their LinkedIn and building a dossier on them. I just did that, right? This isn't like canned code. I just did that. And when we think about how powerful that is to have been able to do that with a couple of clicks, that's what Reagan is talking about, what changes the game. That's what changes the game. And right here, I can email them and say, introduction, spell it right, intro. And then just draft it with AI and send. Now this is sent through your regular email, but we're a little bit smarter than that. We know, if they've opened it, if they forwarded it, you name it. So from that command prompt, I found AECOM, I found their CEO, I found their email, and now I'm talking to them. Now it's up to you to sell. I can't sell for you, neither can Otto. But now it's up to you. But you now have the power to look at what you get on Randall Taylor with 1 click of the button.
That's crazy.
This is every post in the last 30 days. Network effect, experience, outreach history, all detailed notes. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Total different world.
Yeah. I mean, this would have, look, we, in the tech space, we invest in marketing, and this would have taken a week for someone to do in the past. We had, if not more. Yeah. I mean, we had teams doing this.
Right.
I mean, this concept of leapfrogging. I really believe, Bassem, that, look, I think construction is entering its marketing era.
Yeah.
And really it's less about, marketing and advertising, more of understanding who your customers actually are. And when you make that phone call that, Reagan was mentioning, we know what to say to them. It isn't just a out of the blue call. You have relevant information that you can bring to the conversation.
Yep.
That's really, really important.
100%.
Okay, we're gonna get up on time here. Just one question. Linda asked, can the AI draft the email for me? It can. 100%.
And not just one email, but when you build a sequence, let's say that the best in class sequence at your company is 7 steps. You just tell it what you want each email to be about, or each LinkedIn outreach to be about. And of course, you have control. You're still the human. You can alter what it's crafting. But instead, it will create these 7 steps. As soon as you enroll a person in this outreach, it will create all of their emails that are being sent to them and schedule it in that outbox. So you can see what's scheduled, what was written, or you can look at it right here and say, this is obviously a demo database, but it's like, hey, Bassem Hamdy. The idea here is that you're in full control of what's being sent out. Now, Don't worry. It's gonna tell you if there's anything wrong with what it's created. So it's a multi-model solution. Otto is reading the email it created and then editing the email it created and then telling you if there's any issues with the email it created. So you're not going to be sending gobbledygook or junk. That's very, very important to know. But yes, it can create every email, and you can be emailing hundreds of people a week from where you're emailing probably 10 today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Linda asks another great question on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great sales tool. I think a lot of folks here know that. How effective is the LinkedIn outreach? Do you have any statistics on the results from LinkedIn?
3 things that are statistically accurate. You want them in your network. So having the LinkedIn step of LinkedIn connection request is imperative. You want to build out your network on LinkedIn. You want to make sure that every time a new contact comes in, that Otto is going in and clicking on connection request. It also goes in and clicks like on all their posts in the last 3 days. So you're also showing up. The most important thing is that you're showing up in there. I viewed their profile, I did a connection request, and I liked your stuff. That gets you on their LinkedIn email summary. That also gets, if they're looking at LinkedIn, that also gets you on the recently viewed. So now you're in front of them. That's a pretty important factor. We're finding that you win more business when you're already connected to your network. People are checking LinkedIn first. Am I connected to this company? Am I connected to this person? Have we engaged before? That engagement metric does increase win rate. All of this increased win rate. LinkedIn specifically on construction. The other one, and I know everybody's a little worried about like cold calling, but it's not really cold calling. It's calling these warm folks. If you do have just, hey, it's Bassem. I know we've not worked together before, but I'd love to chat, and just leave that voicemail. You're also seeing a huge uptick in the number of inbound leads you get from owners when you're having that conversation. Not waiting for them to have that expansion plan. They'll remember you when you call them when they don't have a project. And I think that's once they have the project, we're all like kids playing soccer, right? Every GC subcontractor, we're all just chasing that ball. They're inundated. They're the best looking person on campus, right? They've got 12 people around them. Talking to a head of real estate, head of operations, head of construction, at an owner before it happens, that's when you're top of mind. And all of this contributes to a higher win rate.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's definitely to LinkedIn kind of a secret sauce to kind of figure out the best kind of approach to it. Okay, question on the map. We love maps. I love maps. Can you zoom in on a specific geographic area and zip codes? So how, by region, how do you think about kind of slicing and dicing the market by region?
Oh, I'd love to show you guys that. Let me just go into the back end and I'll show you a little bit of the infrastructure. So this is you don't have to worry about this view. This is our view of the world. Every time you request a new city, we discover sources. So for instance, this is one of their key sources. No, sorry, Knox County. But if you were to go into like a bigger county like Boston, you're going to have a lot more sources. York, for instance, this is York, Pennsylvania. Hundreds, dozens. And so as soon as you put in that request, we then cut it up into different places because a city, a zip code, may go across multiple counties. The most important thing is that we want zoning, permitting, and planning commission breakdown. So when we put in a city, we're really focusing on finding the planning commissions that are having meeting minutes, finding where land development might be posted, finding where land or permits are also being pulled. The reason why permits are only important to understand your competitive matrix. You might be in, Philly, and you might want to say, hey, I'm in Philadelphia. There's a site plan review site. That's great. That's going to find me first in, first to win. But in Philly, there's a permitted world, and I want to know how many permits this electrical sub pulled, or my GC competitor pulled, or this mechanical person pulled. So this is the back end of all the sources. At the same time, as soon as a source is added, we're also extracting all known general contractors, subcontractors to create your bid coverage list through things like Google Maps and other sites. And then you just see all these signals. 15,000 signals in the last, I guess this is a 7-day view, 15,000 signals. This is what folks are doing. This is what folks are doing. This is all included. It's all part, it's all part of that subscription. And when you look at something like Alcoa, and I'll just zoom in for folks, this is signal to bid. They're building a smelter. This is reading their view of the world and saying what signals are there to bid. In 2029, they're doing a mine region development. This information's out there, and you could do this as a human if you had the time. This is all served up in, we're building the Google of business development for your company. And if you don't have this information already, you should. And I'll tell you, people across the street, your competitors do. We're a fast growing company. So it is an AI arms race that you got to get in top of. And this isn't about going to Claude Code and saying, show me leads. This is about actual business to business AI replacing your CRM, replacing your Salesforce. It's like,
yeah. This is, and I say this all the time, the way that, a person buys AI and uses AI is not the same way that a company should do it. And think about it. There are very different problem sets and challenges, and really like the scale of, we call it orchestration, is much more complex. We did, and Zach, if you could drop in the demo link one more time. Bassem, we had someone asking a question on how to get into Contech. I don't know if you want to, we're kind of running up on time here, but what
you have to be crazy. So that helps. If you're insane,
yes.
Got to check yourself and how logical. No, I've been in Contech for 27 years. Let me tell you, you just start at the bottom. You got to know this industry. Reagan will say it best. You got to know the inside baseball. You got to be a student of the art. And to be a student of the art, you got to be passionate about construction. Really, it's a real, for me, it's the coolest industry because you're building something that's physical that lasts. So I was, with CMIC, ERP company, and I was implementing Turner Construction, and I got to help close out the Seahawks Stadium. That's a big story. I took my kid to Seattle pre-COVID and showed him, I was part of that. And there's this big concrete thing that's going to be there for 50, 100 years. And that's cool. That's like being part of something. So the first thing is you got to love construction. You got to get into the minutia. You got to get into the inside baseball. You got to be passionate about building stuff. And then construction tech's going to work for you. If you think construction tech's just a means to an end and another tech job, no, it's not. That's why I get to be a big fish in a very small pond, because it's not another, tech company job. This is a hard industry to automate. So you got to be passionate about building stuff. I think that's the first thing. Ask yourself that.
Yeah. Well, and the good news of that is construction will never not be in high demand. So there will always be a job, and the industry is always looking for smart, talented folks, which I'm sure you are, Jonathan. I just posted our careers page if you would like to see what open roles we have. Well, look, we're at time. Bassem, Reagan, thank you all for joining in. Hugely insightful. For folks that want to get a deeper dive, Briq.ai, you can check out more on Otto, sign up for a demo, take a tour of it as well, which is always fun to do. And we will see everyone on the next webinar. Have a great June and summer, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.